All right, ladies, welcome to Interest Groups. Today you need to focus on a few essential questions. One, how have interest groups helped to democratize the US political system? Two, why are interest groups a threat to democracy? Three, what role do interest groups play in the setting the political agenda? Four, what techniques do PACs use to get their messages across? Five, how do interest groups achieve and exert their influence? Some key terms you need to know. Um, the ones specific to interest groups, the top four you already know, but revolving door, iron triangle, lobbyist. You need to know the different types of interest groups, the different acts to try to regulate interest groups, and examples of different interest groups and how they exert influence. Okay, so interest groups are an organized group that tries to influence public policy. Other names you might hear are special interests. You'll hear government politicians talking a lot about regulating special interests or public interest groups, that kind of stuff. They're talking about interest groups. Different. The big thing is that they're different from political parties because interest groups don't run a political candidate. Now that's really important. Interest groups don't run a political candidate, but political parties do. And their major goal is to shape the public agenda. Your book talked a little bit about collective good versus the free rider problem. And what that means is that all groups provide some sort of collective good, some value that cannot be withheld from a non-member. For example, better environment, laws against discrimination, etc. But then there's also a free rider problem. Potential members don't join the group since they can get the perks without the work. So why would you pay into a system if you don't have to pay for it? Interest groups must provide other perks to get people to join. Examples of that include like AAA or the AARP, which is the Association for Retired People. AAA is the Automobile Association of America. So both of those are interest groups that have lobbyists and they lobby on your behalf, but they also provide collective good services because they advocate for better roads and things like that. And then if you actually buy into it, then you are helping to support those perks. They often provide other perks. AAA and AARP provide benefits, lots of discounts to its members. So that provides some sort of incentive or other perks to join and to pay into joining. Okay, so what is a lobbyist? A lobbyist is an interest group representative who seeks to influence legislation that will benefit his or her organization or client through political persuasion. There are tons of lobbying techniques that were outlined in your textbook. There's a chart that I would take a peek at. You need to know at least probably 5 lobbying techniques. So I would choose 5 of these and make sure that you really know what's involved with them. Things can include testifying against or testifying at legislative hearings, contacting government officials directly to present their point of view, helping to draft legislation, alerting state legislators to the effects of a bill on their districts, having influential constituents contact the legislature's office, consulting with government officials to plan legislative strategy, attempting to shape implementation of policy, mounting grassroots lobbying efforts, helping to draft regulations, rules, or guidelines, etc. So this is a clip from 60 Minutes about Jack Abramoff. He was mentioned in your book, and so I'm just going to play you a brief clip from this. Okay. I will post the link, and you can watch this on your own. Sorry, it doesn't look like it's going to work on here. Okay, so members of Congress, interest group representatives, aka lobbyists, and affected bureaucratic agencies have a symbiotic relationship, which is known as the iron triangle or iron triangles. The idea is that information is currency, so interest groups provide information to members of Congress who then provide that information to the affected bureaucratic agencies and that they serve, and so it's a kind of win-win for everybody. right? So everybody likes having this special information. 3 types of interest groups: public interest groups, economic interest groups, and religious and ideological groups. Public interest groups are organizations that seek a collective good that will not selectively and materially benefit group members. So think of public interest groups benefit the public. Examples would be civil liberties group, environmental groups, good government groups, and church groups. More hard or concrete examples: the NAACP, the National Association for Colored People, Greenpeace, MoveOn.org, Common Cause, which I'll talk about in a second, and the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union. ACLU will fight for everyone's free speech. What's unique about that is that it could be positive free speech or negative, they will still fight for it. So they'll even fight for Nazi free speech. Okay, next type of interest groups are economic interest groups. They are a group with primary purpose of promoting the financial interests of its members to make profits and obtain economic benefits for members. These tend to be the most effective of all the types of interest groups. There are business groups, including trade and professional groups like the American Medical Association, labor organizations like the AFL-CIO, we talked about that last semester in Econ, and organizations representing the interests of farmers. The farming interest groups have been losing power in recent years as their ability to pay into these interest groups has decreased. Governmental units and PACs. We've talked about PACs already in the last chapter. So let me talk now a little bit about some public interest groups and government watchdogs. After 1960s and 1970s, that was kind of when the rise of interest groups happened, and the government was seen as failing to protect the rights and interests of common people, right? After Watergate, people thought that the government couldn't really be trusted. And so a couple of government watchdog organizations and public policy interest groups popped up. The first one is called Common Cause. Common Cause was a government watchdog which successfully challenged aspects of congressional seniority system, passed sweeping campaign finance reforms, played a major role in the enactment of legislation authorizing federal financing of presidential campaigns. This is their website, and it's pretty interesting. You can see that it Americans deserve open, honest, accountable government. Tell your lawmakers, overturn Citizens United, end gerrymandering. So it's pretty interesting. I would take a moment just to explore this website. It still is in existence today. Then there's also Public Citizen. Public Citizen was headed by Ralph Nader, a center that analyzed the activities of regulatory agencies, concluding that none of them enforced antitrust regulations or cracked down on deceptive advertising practices. So this is a pretty interesting, you can see what does Public Citizen fight for. So this is pretty interesting. You can see what types of stuff that they stand for. Okay, so back to our presentation. Next is ideological groups. And ideological groups include religious groups. The one that's kind of famous is the Moral Majority. This was by Reverend Jerry Falwell, who assisted in the election of Ronald Reagan, so hardcore conservative. The Christian Coalition is another, with Pat Robinson. He played a key role in the 1994 and 2008 conservative elections. Um, you might know Pat Robinson. He's still around. He's on the 700 Club. Um, we've talked about him before. Um, there's also the National Rifle Association group, and that is an ideological group because they are anti-gun control, and so they are pro-conservative. You also have something called the Business Roundtable. The Business Roundtable is a fraternity of powerful and prestigious business leaders that tells the business side of the story to legislators, bureaucrats, White House personnel, etc. Basically, they lobby for business interests, which is so they're pro-business. So again, that makes them a conservative group. Okay, unions are losing membership and political power, but they tend to be one of the major, more liberal interest groups are unions. But as I mentioned, they are losing lots of membership and political power with it because with more members comes more money because they pay more dues. Okay, there are two major ways for interest groups to accomplish their goals, or actually, sorry, three major ways. One, lobbyists, right? They use lobbyists to go to advocate on their behalf on Capitol Hill. Number two would be money. They donate funds through PACs, 527s, individual donations, and super PACs. The problem with this is that the rich and the powerful tend to have more influence over lawmakers than poor or disenfranchised people. And three, sometimes litigation. Congress would not pass civil rights laws, so interest groups use litigation to get changes, is an example of how litigation has worked for people. Okay. So you can lobby the executive branch, so lobbying these three branches of government. Lobbying the executive, interest groups meet with the president and staff to discuss policy implementation. They also monitor the implementation of laws and policies. Number two, lobbying the courts, direct sponsorship of the courts, and then filing of amicus curiae briefs. Amicus curiae literally translates to friend of the court. And this is interesting. It's legal jargon, so it's very properly formatted, that informs the court on where the interest group stands on the court case. And so these are supposed to be you're supposed to take note of where we stand of the decision that we would want, but we're not actually involved in the court case. The last way interest groups can lobby the courts is they can try to exert influence over who is nominated to the federal courts. So you'll see some of this happening now with the death of Antonin Scalia. You can also have grassroots lobbying and protests, right, as a way for individuals to lobby. You'll notice that I didn't talk about lobbying the legislative branch because everything else when we talk about lobbying is lobbying the legislative branch. So the way that the lobbyists go meet with legislators is the legislative branch. Okay, so what do lobbyists offer? The biggest thing is information, right? If they show themselves to be a reliable source of information, people will listen to them. If they don't, then they won't be listened to. The other one is money in the forms of PACs, 527s, and then also just outright donations. The revolving door refers to the fact that many former politicians become lobbyists. Being a lobbyist is very, very lucrative. And this was a little bit sketchy. It was happening a little bit too much. So legislation has actually since been passed saying that there are certain limits now on how former politicians can use their power as lobbyists. Okay, lobbying in elections, candidate recruitment and endorsement. For example, Emily's List and Wish List. Emily's List works to advocate for minorities in politics, and Emily's List is is a Democratic or liberal interest group. Wish List is a group that works to get more women in power and is a conservative interest group. They're trying to get more minorities and more women in government. There's also getting out the vote, which you'll see referred to as GOTV, getting out the vote. And examples of that would be MoveOn.org, or which is the more liberal one, or Progress for America, the more conservative one. Rating the candidates or office holders. For example, the American Conservative Union and the Americans for Democratic Action will rank each of the candidates on certain issues and try to inform voters about where they stand on those issues. And then you have PACs, right? Political action committees, which have regulated money, right? Remember, they're limited to $5,000 per PAC per election year, but they give money to both federal candidates and also to House and Senate candidates. PAC money often averages over half a House candidate's spending, which I thought was interesting. Okay, so what is being done to regulate all of this lobbying? In 1946, there was the Federal Regulation of Lobbying Act. That was anyone hired to lobby any member of Congress must register and file quarterly financial reports showing where their money had gone. But in 1995, they figured that that wasn't enough, and the Lobbying Disclosure Act was put into place. It employed a strict definition of who a lobbyist is, 20% of a client's time to lobbying, and required lobbyists to first register with the clerk of the House and the secretary of the Senate, 2, report their clients and issues in the agency or house that they lobbied, 3, estimate the amount they are paid by each client. And it was revealed that nearly $4 million was spent on lobbying for each member of Congress. That's a lot of money. So in 2007, the Honest Leadership and Open Government Act of 2007 was passed, and this is where it was lobbying reform, and it banned gifts to members of Congress and their staffs from private lobbyists. And notice it's private lobbyists. It doesn't matter. They can still receive gifts from public lobbyists, but then they have to disclose it. It toughened disclosure requirements and increased time limits on moving from the federal government to the private sector. For example, ex-presidents becoming lobbyists. Now they have to wait over a year. So the big question, what do you think? Should lobbyists be regulated, or is it a violation of the First Amendment to ask them to be regulated? Noodle on that for a little bit, and I'll post the link to the Abramov video shortly. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks.